The face printed on millions of razor packages was not a mascot. It belonged to a man whose actual first name was King. King Camp Gillette became famous for turning a sliver of sharpened steel into a global habit, but shaving was only the smaller part of his ambition. Years before his razor reached a bathroom shelf, Gillette published a plan to end economic competition, absorb American industry into one enormous publicly owned corporation, and concentrate the population in a futuristic metropolis beside Niagara Falls. Then he built a company that became a monument to modern consumer capitalism. That contradiction is the real story behind the Gillette empire, and it begins with a salesman staring at a dull blade. King Camp Gillette was born in Wisconsin in 1855 and grew up in Chicago. His family survived the Great Chicago Fire, but the disaster destroyed his father's hardware business. As an adult, Gillette became a traveling salesman, the kind of job that taught him how people bought ordinary objects, which products moved quickly, and why repeat customers mattered. In the 1890s, he worked for the Crown Cork and Seal Company. Its founder, William Painter, had created the disposable bottle cap. Painter's success suggested an irresistible formula: invent something useful that customers would throw away and need again. Gillette began searching for his own version. The opportunity appeared during an everyday irritation. Men who shaved at home often used straight razors that required skill, stropping, and periodic sharpening. Early safety razors existed, but their forged blades were still relatively thick and needed maintenance. Gillette imagined a thin sheet steel blade that could be manufactured cheaply, clamped rigidly into a holder, and discarded when dull. The concept sounded obvious. Manufacturing it was not. Experts reportedly told Gillette that steel thin enough to be disposable could not be hardened, sharpened, and produced with the consistency he needed. For years, the razor remained an idea. The breakthrough required more than Gillette's inspiration. Engineer William Emery Nickerson helped redesign the holder and, crucially, develop machinery and processes for producing the blades at scale. That distinction matters. Great fortunes are often remembered through a single founder's face, while the engineers who make the product manufacturable fade into the background. Gillette formed the American Safety Razor Company in 1901. It soon became the Gillette Safety Razor Company. Production began in 1903. The first year was unimpressive. Just 51 razors and 168 blades were sold. A year later, after manufacturing improved and the patent was granted in November 1904, sales surged to more than 90,000 razors and 123,000 blades. The impossible sheet of steel had become a repeatable product. Today, Gillette's name is attached to the razor and blades model: sell the durable handle cheaply or give it away, then profit from replacement blades. The phrase is useful. The origin story is usually too neat. Economic research into the company's early pricing found that Gillette did not begin by practically giving away the razor. The original set sold for $5, a serious purchase at the time. While Gillette's blade patents were in force, compatible blades were protected from direct competition, and the company could charge for both parts of the system. Broad discounting and giveaways became much more important later, especially as patents expired and rivals could sell blades that fit the handles. So Gillette did help popularize a locked-in system of handle and replacements. But the familiar story that King invented a cheap handle, expensive blade strategy fully formed at the beginning is a retrospective myth. The real advantage was a patented product, mass production, relentless advertising, and a habit consumers repeated. Gillette understood that a new kind of blade needed trust. A customer was being asked to press mass-produced steel against his face. The company placed King's portrait and signature on its packaging, turning the founder himself into a guarantee of authenticity. That choice made him one of the most recognizable businessmen of his era. In places where customers did not know the English brand name, they could ask for the blades with the man's face. Gillette was sometimes surprised to discover that strangers assumed the portrait was fictional. The image also hid a more complicated corporate reality. King was the visionary and salesman, but the enterprise depended on Nickerson's engineering, outside financing, distributors, and executives. Gillette later fought fellow director John Joyce for control and eventually sold his interest. His name and face stayed with the company even as his direct power receded. The brand became larger than the man printed on it. The decisive expansion arrived with mass distribution. By 1908, Gillette had manufacturing operations in the United States and Europe. In 1915, the company sold roughly 450,000 razors and more than 70 million blades. Then the United States entered the First World War. The government purchased razor sets for American servicemen. A safety razor was practical in the field, whereas straight razor and sharpening equipment were inconvenient. Millions of young men encountered the Gillette system as part of military life. This did more than produce a large order. It placed the product inside a daily routine. When soldiers returned home, the habit returned with them. The episode reveals a pattern Fortune Chronicles will revisit. The biggest fortunes are rarely created by invention alone. They grow when a product becomes attached to distribution, identity, and repetition. Gillette was no longer selling a clever tool. It was helping standardize how a generation shaved. Here the story becomes stranger. In 1894, years before the razor company, Gillette published The Human Drift. He dedicated its ideas to humanity and argued that poverty, waste, and crime were products of a badly organized competitive system. His answer was not small reform. Gillette proposed replacing competing firms with one gigantic organization, owned in common, that would coordinate production for the public benefit. He imagined much of the population living in a vast planned city near Niagara Falls, drawing power from the water. The book included diagrams and architectural schemes for a dense engineered metropolis. Gillette kept returning to the idea. In World Corporation, published in 1910, he laid out another version of a unified enterprise. He even tried to recruit Theodore Roosevelt to lead it. Roosevelt declined. Later, Gillette collaborated with socialist writer Upton Sinclair on the People's Corporation. The contradiction was extraordinary. The businessman whose patented system constrained competition dreamed of eliminating competition altogether. The founder who put his own face on a global brand imagined replacing private corporate rivalry with collective ownership on an immense scale. Gillette's public image suggested command, but corporate control was never so simple. The company's growth brought new investors and stronger managers. Disputes over strategy and ownership weakened King's position. By the time the brand was becoming an international institution, the founder was no longer its unquestioned ruler. That is another recurring pattern in dynasty stories. The name on the building does not always control what happens inside it. A founder may create the symbol, while financiers, engineers, and professional executives capture the machinery of scale. Gillette remained famous. He traveled, wrote, promoted his social ideas, and enjoyed the status attached to his name. In the late 1920s, he acquired a ranch in the Santa Monica Mountains and commissioned prominent architect Wallace Neff to design its residence. But his wealth was vulnerable. Property spending and the collapse in share values during the Great Depression badly damaged his finances. King C. Gillette died in Los Angeles in 1932. The company carrying his name survived him by generations. It expanded, fought competitors, developed new shaving systems, and became one of the world's most valuable consumer brands. In 2005, Procter & Gamble acquired the Gillette Company in a transaction valued at roughly $57 billion. That number can make the founder's story look inevitable. It was not. The company began with years of failed development, an engineer solving the hardest manufacturing problem, a first year of only dozens of razor sales, and a founder who eventually lost control. The empire endured because the product combined standardization, replacement demand, distribution, and brand trust. The face disappeared from most packages. The name did not. Gillette's legacy is often reduced to one sentence: give away the razor and sell the blades. The fuller lesson is more useful. First, invention is not manufacturing. Gillette saw the opportunity. Nickerson helped make the thin blade producible. Second, a recurring purchase becomes powerful only when distribution and habit reinforce it. Third, founder mythology simplifies a network of people, patents, capital, and timing into one memorable face. And finally, personal ideology can sit in sharp conflict with commercial success. King Gillette wanted to reorganize society into a cooperative world corporation. Instead, he created a private brand that outlived him, outgrew his control, and eventually became part of a consumer goods giant. His utopian metropolis was never built. His smaller invention entered hundreds of millions of ordinary mornings. That is the paradox behind the razor empire. The man who dreamed of ending competition became immortal through one of capitalism's most famous products. If you enjoy the hidden histories behind famous fortunes, subscribe to Fortune Chronicles. Next, we'll follow another household name back to the family, conflict and business decision that built the empire.